All right, let's get to the conversation. This is so good. I love that track. It is called Captain Quirk, and it is from the Energy Orchestra, their new album, The Science of Sound. And we have sort of the mastermind behind this whole thing, Jason Everett. Jason, thank you for joining today on Make Weird
Oh,
Music.
thank you for having me. It's a real honor. I'm pleased to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so I knew I wanted to talk to you not because your album is on 7D Media and not because the music was interesting, but
Is it weird?
because, well, no, but I remember going to Guitar Center many, many years ago, picking up a 7 string Conklin bass and going, what kind of person would buy this? And in all of those years, I never saw anyone until I saw you playing a 7 string Conklin bass. So,
Well, there are quite a few of us out there, but I'm glad I'm not alone. But it's yeah, it's a unique instrument for sure.
oh my goodness. Yeah. So, you're the composer behind this music and the bassist. Why don't you tell us a little about the Deep Energy Orchestra? And I would love to know if you're using that 7 string bass to write this music too, because it's so fascinating to me.
Oh, that's my primary instrument. So yeah, I use that. I do a lot of my compositional work in my head, and we can talk about kind of my approach to composition in a bit if you'd like. But Deep Energy Orchestra is kind of a culmination of a life of pursuing different genres of music that really turned me on. I learned to play bass basically by playing Rush tunes and taught myself. And my Sunday morning ritual would be the first Rush album, and I'd play every note on every song until the last one, and that was through signals. So I come from a real prog rock kind of background. I grew up as a classical musician, but I was always turned on by the bass. Um, and then from there, I kind of evolved into jazz, got into Jocko. From there, I was introduced to Indian music with John McLaughlin and Shakti and Mahavishnu Orchestra, and fell in love with flamenco. Again, John McLaughlin's been a huge influence on me, and this record actually is dedicated to him for having such a huge influence on me. So I got real into flamenco, and all of these things, they're not just culturally different from Western music. They have certain tonalities that I really appreciate, the Middle Eastern and the Indian kind of rags and scales, but more importantly, a real rich rhythmic foundation. And kind of Jocko said, everything's a drum. I really relate to odd meters and polymeters, and it's actually almost harder for me to write in 4/4 than it is for me to write in 7. So those musics have really inspired that rhythmic diversity that I think characterizes Deep Energy Orchestra. So you'll hear Indian flavors, you'll hear flamenco flavors, you'll definitely get that prog rock stuff, and jazz and some classical. The ending piece is a very classical inspired piece. So it's just everything that's kind of influenced me and one group, and I've just been blessed to have the kind of musicians who can pull it off.
Yeah, so what we just heard had a couple of pretty killer guest musicians, and you've got a bunch of great guests on this album. Why don't you tell us about who was on the track we just heard?
Well, the guitarist, the first solo you heard was Mark Lettieri. He's well known for Fearless Flyers and Snarky Puppy, and I've been a big fan of his playing with Snarky Puppy. I've gotten to listen to some of his own band, and it's super funky. The guy's just got funk from top to bottom. Don Gunn started. He was. Oh, you got to hear Don's uh, full drum solo. Don was my assistant producer on this, and he did all of the engineering work. He's worked for people like Peter Frampton and King Crimson, um, and he's well known as an engineer. But his drumming is so melodic and so amazing. So it was really great to have him on there, and I definitely want to give him some kudos and really talk about his musicianship on the drum set. And then On electric violin, I have Joe Deninzon, who is the violinist for Kansas. He's also on the 7D label with his own group, and just an amazing guy to work with. And then the last kind of real heavy was Adam Holzman, who everyone knows played with Miles and was Miles' producer. Was part of that whole time frame in Miles' career. One of my favorites, frankly. So yeah, I'm just blessed to have some really killer musicians on this record.
Absolutely. So set us up to listen to the song "Secrets of Subtraction." We'll hear the first 3 or 4 minutes of that, but what's going on there, and what can we expect to hear?
Well, so probably about 15 years ago, I had a group in my community, and the drummer, a very good friend of mine, uh, came in with this. I was playing Doombek, and it was kind of a Middle Eastern belly dancing kind of group that I had called Amazah, and he brought this Greek rhythm in, which was a descending 5/4/3, right? No, 4/3/2. Excuse me. Um, right, 4/3/7/2/9. Yeah, 4/3/2, and we were just jamming along with that. And I took it home and I wrote the bass line for Secrets of Subtraction. And then over the course of the next probably say year, I wrote the melody. We had a different middle section at that time. The guitarist had co-composed a section. But when I started working on it for this record, I went back to the woodshed and came up with that section after the little drum break. That I'm really pleased with how it turned out. In fact, I couldn't decide between one groove or the other, and then I found a way to work them both in. So then, who could I find to play that crazy melody? I had the good fortune to have a conversation with Gary Husband, and he said, "Yeah, I'll listen to the track." And he just said he really dug it, and he went above and beyond on the recording, doing clav, doing electric piano, doing synth, and I mean, the guy is just so wonderful to work with, and such an amazing musician.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's take a listen to Secrets of Subtraction. And in case I didn't mention it, the opening track was called Captain Quirk. So here is Secrets of Subtraction. Man, what a cool track. And
No, thank you, brother.
everyone knows Gary is such an incredible drummer, but I don't know if people realize what a great keyboard player, pianist, composer Gary Husband is. And he's out there touring with John McLaughlin, all last year, right? Or I know for a
Right.
while.
And Billy Cobham too.
That's right.
In
Yeah.
fact, he was his tour dates, European tour dates with Billy Cobham got extended, so he was unavailable to finish the record, which is how I met Adam. So, but yeah, just Gary's just so talented, and he's so humble. He's really just one of the most humble, sweet guys you've ever met.
Yeah, it's unfair. I mean, he's got the whole package for sure. I got to
Yeah,
meet him at the Moon June Music Festival in Spain, and he was just one of the nicest people I could have imagined meeting.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
So this is the third album from the Deep Energy Orchestra. And are all three on 7D Media, Trey Gunn's record label?
They are, in fact, Trey. The first record was a live record, kind of recorded in that Snarky Puppy style. I was awarded an artist in residency with Jackstraw Productions in Seattle, which was a week of studio time. Um, Engineer everything covered for 40 hours. And so my proposal was to do a live record, um, and had Selva Ganesh as part of my lineup. And actually, Trey reached out and said, because Selva was doing he was teaching the first part of that week, and Trey wanted to hook up with Selva, and I actually didn't know who Trey Gunn was at the time. And so over the course of a couple of days, we started talking. I was like, well, I'd love it if you'd sit in. And he ended up being on the entire record. And afterwards, he was like, I'd love to have you guys on my label. And, just like a gift from God, just amazing to connect with him. And so he's on almost every track on the first two records. He's only on a couple of tracks on this record, in part because I had a lot of, I added my own bass, was able to multi-track, whereas when we're live, I need another bass player. And so he's able to just so seamlessly transition from bass to guitar and, so much more with his setup. He sounds like a synth. He sounds like, UFOs coming in from outer space. He's just got so many sounds that he can produce. It's just amazing. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be on his label, and I'm really in great company with the other artists there.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who's looking to buy this album, you can get it at deepenergyorchestra.bandcamp.com. This is kind of a dumb question, but are Trey and Don related?
No, they're not. And it's not a dumb question. I get it a lot, and so do they. No, they're not related, but they're good friends.
Oh, interesting. All right, cool. Yeah, so this album is called The Science of Sound. It's the third Deep Energy Orchestra album. You can get it on Bandcamp. Is it available physical formats as well?
Sure, yeah, we do have hard copies, CD, and then it's also on every streaming service. But we'd love it if, on Bandcamp, you pay what you want. So give it a listen and pay what you want.
Awesome. So we heard Captain Quirk, which is track 3, and then Secrets of Subtraction, which is track 5. And then the other prime number track I want to play is number 7, called Solar Playground. So what can you tell us about Solar Playground before we listen and wrap the interview?
Sure. Well, what I'll do is I'll actually respond to your selection of music for this interview. There are basically three types of compositions that I have. Some are very old, upwards of 30 years, that have never really been captured appropriately on media. So it was Solar Playground I actually wrote about 34 years ago. And I have one recording of us at a bar playing it in Minneapolis with Little Green Men. And then I was really productive in terms of composition about 12 years ago. And so, So that's where Secrets of Subtraction kind of came in that portion of my compositional lifetime rather. And then Captain Quirk is new. So I've actually got two more records that are pretty much ready to go because I have so many compositions in the can that no one's ever heard. So Solar Playground does go back quite a ways, and it was a great time in my life as a musician. I was 19, 18, 19, and Little Green Men was free-form space jazz. And there were no boundaries musically. And it was a huge opportunity or a huge growth period for me. And I was again listening to a lot of Mahavishnu. So this kind of has some of that Mahavishnu kind of flavor. Thank you, John.
And this one has Joe on violin and Don on drums, and then Trey Gunn on the touch guitar, war guitar, and Adam Holzman on keyboards, again, as with Captain
Right.
Quirk.
And Trey solo, you wouldn't even know it was a guitar. I mean, it is just it's just screaming. I love it. So
awesome. Cool. Well, thank you, Jason. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your music and share it with the world. I really it's great. Nice work.
Well, thank you so much again. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I have always been a fan of weird music. And so when I ran across your channel, I'm like, this is my kind of guy. We're definitely on the same page.
Awesome.
So thank you so much. You have a great day.
Yeah, sure. You too. And remember, deepenergyorchestra.bandcamp.com. Let's listen to track 7, Solar Playground, 34 years old song to wrap it up. Cool. That's awesome. I'm gonna guess that was Trey's solo.
It's Trey. Yeah, exactly.